Good morning, everyone. It's Miss Keel here. How are you? So, you watched the trailer for our class and you've joined this summer refresher, and I really thank you for that. And throughout this course, these 12 lessons, we're going to try to get you prepared for your social studies class last year and kind of fill in whatever gaps that we need to, that you maybe missed out on because of COVID from this past school year. So, I thank you for joining us, and we're going to take a look at why we study history today, who studies history, and how we study history. So you just watched a little YouTube clip with your teacher, which is probably me or Mr. Patton, on why we study history and discussed it. And we're going to take a look at today is there such a thing as one history? And you can see here on the PowerPoint that I have the word one in quotes, right? Because when we look back at history, there isn't just one history. History is told from many different perspectives. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. So what is history? History is an account of the past constructed from evidence. We need to look at evidence sources from the past to create our account of what actually happened. And like I just said, this account of the past really differs based on whose perspective you're looking at that historical event from. So why do we study history? Whenever I pose this question every single year to my students, they usually say something like to learn from the past, so we don't repeat our mistakes, and you'd be absolutely correct in saying that. Let's take a look at some of the people who study history. And I just wanted to do an overview of this because I think you probably know some of these people, but just to go over it briefly, historians study the past, okay, an expert in history. And you guys are going to kind of act as junior historians in this course. Archaeologists, a person who studies human history through artifacts, okay, objects from the past. A geographer, an expert in the study of the physical features of the earth. And I don't know if you know, but the course that you're entering into is either Global History Geography 1 or Global History and Geography 2. And geography plays a huge role in how humans have lived in the past. Political scientists study history. They really focus on governments, and anthropologists who study specific cultures of the past. So, I think I skipped a page, guys, sorry. How is history constructed? And again, this is something I'm sure you learned about in 7th, 8th, or 9th grade, primary versus secondary sources, which your teacher should be doing with you in this lesson. But primary sources are firsthand accounts like diaries, journal entries, letters, and a secondary source is a secondary account of history, meaning it was written after the historical event had already happened, like a textbook. So you're going to do some practice with your teacher on which one is a primary or secondary source. So I'll leave that for your teacher. But I really wanted to go over sourcing as we look at sources from the past, what you should be mindful of, right? So as you look at a source, the first thing you're going to want to do is obviously read or look at the source, right? And you're going to want to annotate, which I know is an English term. You've heard it probably in your English classes. And when you annotate, you interact with the source, okay? You're being active with the source. You're underlining sections of the text, circling words, highlighting things, any sort of part of an image that you think might be important. You're writing notes to yourself in the margins. When you look at a source, one of the most important things to do right here, okay, with the sourcing is to look at who created a document, when the document was created, where it was created, and really, very importantly, why it was created, okay? It helps us to determine, is this source biased? Is it one-sided? Is it reliable, okay? And that's what you need to be mindful of when you look at these sources, okay? And you're going to be doing this lunchroom fight with your teacher throughout this lesson. The last thing that is so important in history is corroboration. And that simply means when we look at an historical event, we are comparing different sources about that historical event. So when we look at, I don't know, any event, think about the Revolutionary War, right? The American Revolutionary War. You're going to look at, historians look at many different sources to compare them. And why do they do that? They do that to find where these sources agree or disagree, okay? Historians corroborate sources to uncover what actually happened. If the same thing is being said in 5 different sources, it's more likely that that actually happened, okay? So we need to really be mindful of corroboration as we go through this course and as we, are kind of our junior historians this year. And The last thing, which is so important, it's going to lead us into our next lesson, okay, is contextualizing or contextualization. This is when we look at an historical event and we just got, why did this take place? Okay, and you're going to be doing a whole lesson on that. That's our second lesson for this course. You're describing where the event took place, what led to it, and why. Okay, and you're going to do a lot of practice on that in your next event. Now, just bear with me for a second. I just wanted to explain the homework because I created it, and your teacher, again, most likely me, can answer any other questions, but you're going to be evaluating sources. So I've posed here, if you look in the highlighted gray, 6 different historical questions. So for example, who was present at the signing of the Declaration of Independence? That's the historical question we're looking at. And you have to determine which one of these sources is more reliable. Which do you trust more and why? And don't be worried about being right or wrong, okay? We're going to be discussing this next class. Have a good day, guys.